Faith may not be there, but instead stayed in the Midwest.
The entire saga of Jimmy Hoffa, the rise and the fall, it all begins and ends in Detroit. And I think that sometimes gets lost in the narrative. That you have this giant East Coast bias, I think, when you're talking about anything organized crime related.
Scott Bernstein, host of the Gangster Report podcast, joins us now from Detroit. Scott, good to see you. You've covered...
Original Gangster podcast.
Original Gangster podcast.
My web magazine.
All right, my mistake. Thank you. Original Gangster podcast, and as well as you know these stories, the digs, you've covered them in Michigan, as you know. What do you think we could expect in New Jersey?
Well, it's going to be quite the three-ring circus, I'm certain. These digs kind of take on a life of their own. At least they have the last 20, 25 years since I've been following them. And in Detroit, at least the last handful of digs, it almost becomes like a tailgate for a football game. You got people with, bringing their coolers and their stereos and, their lawn
Thanks for
chairs
watching.
and camping outside,
For more,
hoping to see a piece
stay
of history,
tuned.
happen in front of them.
In this case,
Smash that subscribe and like, and the comments are on. Comment if you want.
It's behind the Interstate Waste Company that had nothing to do with this, and it's under the Pulaski Skyway. It used to be the Moscato's dump, which was a mob-connected dump.
Do you think they'll find Jimmy?
That was owned by Phil Brother Moscato, a Genovese crime family.
What's your
mobster,
opinion?
and Paul Coppola, Sr., a businessman. Paul Coppola's son, Frank Coppola, claims that it was his father who buried Hoffa in a barrel. Frank's brother, Paul Coppola Jr., is watching Fox News one day. We're reporting on this, and that's how it became public. Paul lives in Florida, in the Tampa Bay area, and everyone's on pins and needles waiting for this. What do you think the chances are that Hoffa is buried in New Jersey and not something happened to him in Detroit?
Yeah, well, I'll put it at 50-50, and really the
What
only
do you
reason
put
I
it
give it 50% validity is because of Dan Moldea, and a lot of this is coming from, or all of this is coming from Dan Moldea's
when you hit that subscribe, hit the bell too, so you can get the latest updates.
And it brings us back to the former site of the PGP landfill, where the feds were in the subsequent months after Hoffa disappeared in July 1975. The feds were searching the PJP property, and now 47 years later we're back looking at that property again. So it's very intriguing, and I'm very excited to see what happens, just like everyone else is.
Yeah.
If I was a
Legally
betting man,
declared dead in
I'd say
1982.
you're not going to find Jimmy Hoffa.
Think
I
we'll
there's
find
a
him?
chance we might find a body there that's not Jimmy Hoffa, but the Detroit mob has a PhD in gangland homicide. That's why they were tasked with this, mega responsibility, and they pulled off the perfect murder, and they got rid of the body. I believe the body was most likely incinerated within a half hour of him being murdered. The Tocco Zerilli crime family had access to almost a half a dozen incinerators at various sanitation companies, funeral homes, cemeteries, crematoriums. One of those burned down in a suspicious arson fire before the FBI could get a search warrant in there, and a lot of the guys that owned those companies were the people that the FBI puts directly in the conspiracy.
Yeah, Dan, as you mentioned, was working with us on our exclusive for years, and this has been something that has been in the American psyche for so long. What do you think is going to happen when the FBI digs?
I mean, you gotta, again, whether it's coming from Dan or whoever it's coming from, we've been able to. I'm not saying that to disrespect Dan. I'm saying, like, Dan's the godfather on this, and Dan kind of brought us here. You guys obviously helped along the way, but this is the best tip that the FBI's gotten in 10 years. The last tip that really had a lot of meat on the bone was the Tony Zerilli tip, where they dug in Oakland County, Michigan in 2013. So, you have to run this up the flagpole and see if it flies. Again, if I'm a betting man, I don't think they're going to find anything. I find it a bit of a stretch to think that the Detroit mob would need to send his body to New Jersey to bury. I think it's giving, as I said in the clip from the docuseries, I think it's giving the New Jersey mob and the New York mob too much of a role in this. Detroit you know, I've talked to a lot of mobsters, some of them that I believe were involved in this, and they've said that it's offensive, frankly, that they would have to have someone come into their city and handle their own house cleaning. And then when it comes to at least the Sheeran
Again, searching for
theory,
Jimmy
which was,
Hoffa's
put out
body in
that
New Jersey.
Irishman, they're like, you think we needed some drunk Irish union boss from Delaware to
What
come
do you
to
think?
Detroit and do
They're gonna find it or not?
Scott, we're up against the clock. We got to thank Paul Coppola Jr. for alerting us all about this, because if it weren't for him watching Fox News, this wouldn't have happened. Scott Bursting, good to see you. We'll be right back.
Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe.